The gavel fell, not with a sound, but with a gravity wave that rippled through the Senate chamber, nauseating the representatives of 4,000 species. The verdict was delivered by High Counselor Vrex, his translucent skin shimmering with the arrogance of a civilization that had not known fear in 10 millennia. The verdict was not death. Death would have been a mercy, and the Galactic Council was not in the business of mercy. It was in the business of erasure. The species known as humanity was deemed too volatile, too loud, too hungry. We had not attacked anyone, we had not broken any treaties. Our crime was existence. Our crime was the speed at which we learned. While the Eldar races took centuries to refine a warp drive, we jury-rigged one in a decade. While the symbiotic collectives debated the ethics of terraforming, we cracked open dead moons to harvest the marrow within. We made them uncomfortable. We made them feel slow. And for that, we had to go. They did not destroy Earth. They employed a physics-defying displacement engine, a relic of the precursors, to excise the entire Sol system from the galactic arm. They cast us out, hurling our star and its huddled planets across the intergalactic void, aiming for the great emptiness between the spiraling galaxies. We were sent to the Dark Zone, a region of space devoid of nebulae, devoid of star clusters, devoid of hope. It was an interstellar oubliette. They assumed we would freeze. They assumed we would starve. They assumed that in the crushing silence of the void, the human spark would flicker and die, suffocated by the sheer weight of nothingness. They were wrong. The first century was the hardest. The sun, dragged along with us, provided heat, but the psychological toll of the empty sky was devastating. Where once we looked up to see the Milky Way, a river of diamond dust spanning the heavens, there was now only the abyss. Absolute, suffocating black. We were alone in a way no life form was ever meant to be. Suicides spiked. Cults of nihilism formed, worshipping the dark. Civil wars threatened to tear the Sol system apart as resources dwindled and the reality of our eternal imprisonment set in. But then the shift happened. It didn't happen in the halls of government, but in the engineering bays and the hydroponic gardens. A realization took root, hard and bitter as iron. We realized that if the universe was going to deny us light, we would have to build our own. If the galaxy was going to deny us resources, we would have to transmutation them from the very quantum foam of reality. We stopped looking outward, weeping for the stars we had lost, and we looked inward. We looked at the physics of our exile. The displacement engine that had banished us had left a scar on the fabric of space-time near Jupiter. A wound in reality. The Council expected us to fear it. Instead, we studied it. For 300 years, we poked the bruise of the universe. We learned that the laws of physics in the deep void, far from the gravitational interference of a galactic core, were flexible. We built ships not of gleaming alloy and elegant curves, but of brutalist function. We stripped Mercury to its core to build the hull plating. We drained the atmospheres of the gas giants to fuel the new engines. We didn't build warp drives anymore. Warp drives required a roadmap of gravity wells to navigate. In the void, there are no maps. So we built skip drives, violent, tearing engines that didn't fold space but punched holes through it. We learned to walk in the dark. 500 years passed. In the Milky Way, the Council grew stagnant. Their art became derivative, their science plateaued. They spent their days in decadent simulations, believing the threat of humanity was a ghost story told to frighten broodlings. They forgot us, but the universe has a sense of irony. A threat arrived from the other side of the galaxy. The Krill, a swarm intelligence, biological locusts that did not negotiate, did not surrender, and did not stop. They ate systems whole. The Council's elegant fleets, designed for ritualized combat and policing actions, shattered like glass against the Krill bioships. The Council panicked. They fell back system by system, sacrificing billions to buy time. But time was the one thing they couldn't manufacture. The High Counselor Vrex, the descendant of the one who sentenced us, stood in the Grand Chamber, watching the holographic map bleed red. The Krill were at the inner rim. The throne worlds were next. There was no hope. The ancient allies had fled. The weapon stockpiles were empty. The silence of extinction approached. And then the sensors on the perimeter of the galaxy, the same sensors meant to monitor the dark for incoming threats, screamed. It wasn't the Krill. The signal was coming from the void, from the dark zone. The Council technicians stared at their screens in confusion. The energy readings were impossible. They defied the known limits of reactor output. It was a gravitational distortion so massive it registered as a moving star system. "Is it a natural phenomenon?" Vrex asked, his voice trembling. "A rogue black hole?" "No, Excellency," the technician whispered, terror draining the color from his face. "It's a fleet, and it is decelerating." Space tore open. It didn't shimmer with the blue Cherenkov radiation of a council warp arrival. It shattered like a broken mirror. Reality bled violet and bruised black. From the tier they emerged. These were not the ships of the council. They were mountains of metal. Dark, jagged, scarred by cosmic radiation and micrometeoroids. They bore no lights, no windows, no elegant fins. They were monoliths of war built in the dark for the dark. The lead ship was the size of a small moon. Its hull was not white or silver, but matte black, absorbing all light that touched it. On the side of the dreadnought, painted in a stark, defiant white that seemed to burn against the void black hull, was a symbol the council historians had to dig deep into the archives to recognize. A globe wrapped in olive branches, the ancient symbol of Earth. The comms channels of the council fleet, currently engaged in a losing battle with a Krill advance force, were suddenly overridden. There was no static. The signal was crystal clear, powered by a transmission strength that burned out lesser receivers. "This is Admiral Halloway of the United Sol Federation," a voice boomed. It sounded human but different, harder. The voice of a species that had evolved in high-gravity training camps and radiation-shielded bunkers. "We received your distress calls, not because you sent them to us, but because your encryption is pathetic." Silence reigned in the council chamber. The ghost had returned. "Why are you here?" Vrex stammered into the comms. "You were exiled by decree of the—" "The decree is irrelevant," Halloway interrupted. "We are not here for your laws. We are here because this is our galaxy too, and we do not like trespassers." The Krill swarm, detecting a new biomass, turned their attention from the battered council fleet to the newcomers. Millions of bioships, pulsating with acidic energy, swarmed toward the human fleet. It looked like a tidal wave crashing against a cliff. "Weapons free," Halloway said. The council expected laser batteries. They expected plasma torpedoes. They expected the civilized weapons of a civilized galaxy. Instead, the human ships opened up with kinetic artillery. Railguns the size of skyscrapers accelerated tungsten rods to a significant fraction of the speed of light. The silence of space was filled with the visual thunder of impacts. The Krill ships didn't just explode, they vaporized. Kinetic energy transfer on that scale turned biological matter into plasma instantly. Then came the singularity missiles. The humans had weaponized the very technology that had exiled them. Missiles detonated, creating localized event horizons that swallowed Krill hive ships whole, crushing them into points of infinite density before evaporating. It was a slaughter. In 10 minutes, the Krill advance force, which had decimated 3 council armadas, was reduced to drifting dust. The human fleet didn't stop. They didn't ask for permission to dock. They moved past the council defenders, heading straight for the core of the Krill infestation. "Admiral," Vrex called out, we are grateful. We must discuss terms of your reintegration. We can lift the banishment." A laugh came over the channel. It was a cold, dry sound. "You still don't understand, Counselor. You think we want to come back to your table. You think we want to sit in your lit chambers and debate trade tariffs." The massive dreadnought turned its sensors toward the Council throne world. The scan was invasive, stripping away every layer of secrecy the Council possessed. "We didn't survive the dark zone by hoping for your forgiveness," Halloway continued. "We survived by becoming stronger than the dark. We realized that this galaxy, with its soft light and soft people, is a garden. And gardens need gardeners, or they get overrun by weeds like the Krill." "We are not weeds," Vrex shouted, trying to muster some dignity. "We are the High Council. You are the prey," Halloway corrected. "You couldn't protect your borders. You couldn't protect your people. You cast out the only warrior race capable of holding the line because we frightened you. Well, be afraid. The Krill are going to die today. We will hunt them down to the last spore. We will burn their hives and shatter their worlds." The transmission shifted. A visual appeared on the Council's main screen. It was Halloway. He was old, his face scarred, his eyes cybernetic. He looked nothing like the humans of the historical records. He looked like a weapon. "When we are done with the krill," Holloway said, leaning into the camera, "we will turn our ships around. And we will have a long conversation about the last 500 years. We will discuss the price of rent for the galaxy you have been occupying in our absence." "You claim the galaxy?" Vrex whispered. "We claim the void," Holloway said, his voice dropping to a growl. "We tamed the nothingness. Do you really think we will have trouble taming you?" The link cut. The human fleet accelerated, their engines burning with a violet fire that seemed to tear the sky apart. They moved with a synchronization that was terrifying, a single organism made of steel and will. They plunged into the heart of the krill territory, not as rescuers, but as apex predators reclaiming their hunting grounds. On the throne world, the Council watched the telemetry. They watched the humans annihilate systems that had been occupied by the krill. They didn't liberate, they purged. They used weapons that destabilized stars to incinerate entire solar systems to ensure the infection was gone. It was brutal, it was efficient, it was terrifying. As the reports flooded in, of krill hive minds screaming in psychic agony, of entire sectors cleansed in hours, Counselor Vrex sat down. He looked at his hands, the hands of a diplomat, soft and manicured. Then he looked at the screen, at the jagged black silhouette of the human flagship, the Indomitable. He realized then the magnitude of their mistake. They had thrown a child into a wolf pit, hoping the wolves would eat it. Instead, the child had eaten the wolves, worn their pelts, and grown up. The humans were not back to join the Council. The Council was effectively dissolved. The galaxy now operated under new management. The humans had returned from the dead galaxy, and they had brought the death with them, weaponized and leashed, ready to be unleashed upon anyone who dared to question their right to exist. The age of politics was over. The age of humanity had begun. And as the violet wakes of the void ships scarred the stars, the galaxy held its breath, praying that the monsters from the dark would eventually be satiated. But deep down, looking at the destruction of the krill, Vrex knew the truth. Humanity had been forged in a fire that burned away everything except the will to dominate. They would never be satiated. They would never stop. They were the inevitable. They were the entropy that had learned to hate. And they were home. The war against the krill lasted 6 months. In Council estimates, it should have taken 50 years and resulted in the extinction of 80% of sentient life. The humans did it in 6 months with casualty rates that they considered acceptable, and the Council considered genocidal. When the final krill queen was dragged out of her nest in the galactic north, the humans didn't execute her immediately. They dragged her carcass in a stasis field behind their flagship, a trophy towed through the warp gates for all to see. They paraded the defeated nightmare through the systems of the Council. Then came the summons, not a request for a meeting. A summons, coordinates were transmitted to the leaders of every major species. The location, the Sol displacement zone, the empty patch of space where Earth used to be. They arrived in their gleaming yachts and ceremonial cruisers, terrified. When they dropped out of warp, they saw it. Earth was back, not the Earth they remembered. The humans had towed it back. Using tugships of incomprehensible power, they had dragged their planet and their sun back through the void, through the tier in reality, and anchored it back in its rightful place. But it was different. The continents were covered in orbital tethers. The moon was a fortress. The rings of Saturn were being mined by automated drones the size of cities, and surrounding the system was the fleet, millions of ships. Admiral Holloway stood on the deck of the Indomitable, watching the Council ships arrive. He didn't smile. "Open a channel to all vessels," he ordered. "Channel open, Admiral." "This is Sol," Holloway broadcasted. "This is the cradle of humanity. You tried to erase it. You failed. From this day forward, the Galactic Council is disbanded. A new charter is being drafted, one that prioritizes survival over comfort, one that recognizes that the universe is a dark forest, and we are the ones carrying the torch." He paused, letting the weight of the millions of guns pointing at the Council ships sink in. "You have 2 choices. You can sign the charter, contribute your resources to the Federation, and accept our protection. Or you can take your ships, turn around, and fly into the dark zone." Holloway's voice went cold as the grave. "We survived it. Let's see if you can." One by one, the signal lights of the Council ships turned green. They bowed. They submitted. The proud, ancient races, the masters of the galaxy, bent the knee to the children of the void. The new galaxy wasn't a place of democratic deliberation. It was a fortress. And at the center of it, sitting on a throne of neutronium and blood, was humanity. The species that refused to die. The species that looked into the abyss, and when the abyss stared back, they poked it in the eye and stole its wallet. Humanity was back, and this time they weren't asking for space. They were taking it all.